Alright, so this first video is an intro to multiplying matrices. In 3-6 we multiplied a matrix, just one matrix, by a scalar, like a constant. But in this video we're going to be multiplying a matrix by a matrix. So with addition and subtraction, remember the only way that you could add or subtract them together was if their dimensions were exactly the same. With multiplying matrices, there is a different requirement that you have to meet. So what it is with multiplying matrices, you can multiply two matrices together if and only if, so let's take a look at this. So say we've got matrix A, remember we use capital letters, and say matrix A is an M by R matrix. So that means M rows, R columns, and we wanted to multiply it by matrix B. Okay, so we're taking matrix A, we're trying to multiply it by matrix B. And then let's say matrix B is an R by T matrix. This is the only way that you can multiply them together, is if the number of columns in this matrix are the same as the number of rows in this matrix. So what happens is these two right here have to be the same. Okay, if these two are not the same, then you cannot multiply them together. Okay, so the requirement is the number of columns in A has to equal the number of rows in B. Okay, if that is not held, then you cannot multiply them together. And what ends up happening is you get a new matrix, and that matrix we just call capital A, capital B. The new matrix is this as a dimension. So the new matrix is going to be an M by T matrix. So the way that works is these inside dimensions have to match up. If they do, you can multiply them, and the new dimensions are the outside two dimensions. So let's practice that. So determine whether you can multiply these together. If so, state the dimensions. So A is a 3 by 4, B is a 4 by 2. Their middle two numbers do match up. So yes, the product would be defined. Yes, you are allowed to multiply them together. And the new dimensions would be the outside two numbers. So it forms a 3 by 2 matrix when you multiply them together. 3 rows from the first, 3 columns, 2 columns from the second. So then this one, we want to see if it's defined. 2 columns in A, 4 rows in B. Those do not match up. So no, it's not defined, which means I can't state what the dimensions would be. Okay, so let's learn how to actually do this. So multiplying matrices, the element in the mth row and rth column of matrix AB. So I know this all sounds very generic and weird. So what we do is we organize the first matrix by rows like this, and we organize the second matrix by columns like this. Okay, so M row of matrix AB, rth column of matrix AB is the sum of the products. So this is very crazy as we're walking through, but the corresponding elements in row M of matrix A and column R of matrix B. So the important part is that the first matrix you're going by rows, and the second matrix you're going by columns. All right, so here is how this is going to work. So first of all, this is a 2 by 2 matrix, 2 rows, 2 columns. This is a 2 by 2 matrix, again, 2 rows, 2 columns. Since these numbers match up, I know I am allowed to multiply them together, and the new matrix is going to have these dimensions. So RS, the new matrix, we know is going to be a 2 by 2 matrix. So here's what we do. We're going to set up kind of an overly large matrix because we got a lot of work to do in here. So it's going to have 2 rows and 2 columns. So I'm going to have 4 elements total. So when I'm looking for row M, column R of this new matrix, says it's the sum of the products of the corresponding elements in row M of matrix A and column R of matrix B. So I will explain that. So this is the first row, first column. So I look in row 1 of the first matrix and column 1 of the second matrix. So again, this is, and let's write here, this is row 1, column 1. This is row 1, column 2. This is row 2, column 1. And this is row 2, column 2. So this one right here means I look in row 1 right here. And this one means I'm using column 1. So let's read this one more time. The sum of the products of corresponding elements. So here's how this works. The first element here and the first element here, I multiply them together. So I multiply 3 times negative 2. And then it's the sum. So then I add to that the product of the next corresponding elements, 2 times 1. Okay, so the sum of the products of the corresponding elements in row 1 and column 1 for this specific one. And we'll simplify that up in a second. Now, row 1, column 2 means I use these elements in row 1, and now I'm going to use these elements in column 2. So I look at the corresponding elements, take the product, add the product together. So I do 3 times 1, and then add that to 2 times negative 1. It's going to seem crazy right now. I promise it'll get easier as we get going. Now we're in row 2, column 1. So I use row 2 in the first matrix, column 1 in the second matrix. And I'm going to take the sum of the products of the corresponding elements. So negative 1 lines up with negative 2, so I take the product of those. And then add that to 0 times 1. Okay, finally, row 2, column 2. So I use row 2 in the first matrix and column 2 in the second matrix. Take the products of the corresponding elements, add them together. Negative 1 times positive 1 plus 0 times negative 1. Okay, so now I'm just going to simplify these up, and I'm going to have my new matrix. So 3 times negative 2 is negative 6 plus 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 1 is 3 plus 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Negative 1 times negative 2 is positive 2 plus 0 times 1 is 0. Negative 1 times positive 1 is negative 1 plus 0 times negative 1. Okay, finally add these up. Negative 6 and positive 2 leaves me with negative 4. 3 and negative 2 is 1. 2 and 0, negative 1 and 0. So that is my brand new matrix. All right, so we've got that answer. Let's move down to the next one. We've got a bit of a story problem. It says 3 teams competed in the final round of the chess club championships. For each win, a team was awarded 3 points, and for each draw, a team received 1 point. Which team won the tournament? So if you look at this, this is a nice matrix right here. It's got wins in the first column, draws in the second column. So if you look at the way these matrices are supposed to be organized, we end up multiplying by corresponding these rows with these columns. Now notice the wins and draws are in columns. So in the multiplying order, this needs to be set up as the second matrix because the second matrix goes by columns. So we're going to organize this. Those are the number of wins. This is the number of draws. Okay, so then we have this second matrix. It says for each win, a team was awarded 3 points, and for each draw, a team received 1 point. Which actually, now that I'm looking at it, since we're trying to see which team won the tournament, we actually should keep it organized in rows because we want the blue team, the red team, the green team. So what we're going to do then is we're going to multiply it by a matrix that will multiply each of these by 3 and each of these by 1. Okay, so we want to take, for the blue team, 5 wins and 4 draws, and we want to multiply it by this little matrix, which gives you 3 points for each win and 1 point for each draw. So I apologize for saying this should be the first, second matrix should actually be the first. So I am going to line each one up, so it's going to look like this. This is a 3 by 2 matrix. This is a 2 by 1 matrix. So since these middle 2 dimensions line up, my new matrix will be a 3 by 1. So I'm going to have 3 rows and just a single column. So what this is going to give me, this will give me the blue team's total score, the red team, and the green team's total score. So I multiply 5 wins for the blue team times 3 points per win. And then add to that 4 draws for the blue team times 1 point per draw. Okay, so when I add those up in the next step, that'll give me the blue team's total score. Then for the red team, I'm multiplying 6 wins times 3 points each. And then plus 3 draws for 1 point each. And finally for the green team's score, here's the green team's stats right here. 4 wins times 3 points each, plus 5 draws for 1 point each. Okay, so let's simplify this up. Blue team got 15 points for wins, 4 points for draws, that's 19 total points. Red team got 18 points for wins, 3 points for draws, that's 21 total points. And the green team got 12 points for wins, 5 points for draws, that's 17 total points. So we end up with our high score here is 21. So which team won the tournament? That would be the red team.